Well, 3 years.
Oh, you haven't. Okay,
Crazy.
yeah, you.
Oh, over that.
Actually, yeah, that month was at Verizon.
Maybe we could go. It was good. It was a little
Not quite as restful as.
No, definitely a little work.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah, that's, yeah.
But it's okay.
Yeah.
I like having you guys on the table. The last 2 meetings we were here, it was just like that's how we were on the other side. And we had like 2 other visitors. So it's kind of nice to have like a full table.
Is there a Wi-Fi thing?
There is. Is your presentation or presentation?
Oh no, just having it on. Just
Oh, okay, let me check with our IP.
thanks.
Oh, Maria, why are you not here?
I know. Oh, yeah, she couldn't make that.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Maria Magaña from Cecil. Today I'm located in Hollister.
Thank you. Oh, wait, the camera's over there.
Yeah.
Figure that out. I turned to that. Well, the TV, I thought it was that little one. In my defense, I was like,
Sincerity was there.
exactly.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks.
You have.
You're required to.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to officially call this meeting to order at 1:01 p.m. Welcome to our first in-person meeting, my first in-person meeting. After being on this board for almost 3 years, it's great to see everyone again in person. So welcome.
Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to go ahead and commence with a roll call votes or roll call attendance.
Yes. Member Macias,
Present.
Member Ramirez. Present. Member Merritt,
Present.
I do see Member Magana joining us virtually. Unfortunately, I won't be able to count you as present today. We'll only have to.
My apologies. Today I was asked to be at the Hollister office.
Okay, welcome though. Member Gross.
Here.
Member McKellar. Present. Member Hernandez.
Present.
Member Fernandez. Member Jimenez. And Member Garcia. Okay, you have 6 members present. You have a quorum.
Thank you. And at this time, I'd like any guests joining us in person, if they'd like to introduce themselves.
I'm Maribel Trejo with the Alliance on Aging, the Senior Transportation Coordinator. My name is Sandra Dairies. I'm a compliant analyst for MST.
Marzette Henderson, Transportation Manager with MSD.
Norm Tuitabuki, I'm the Chief Operating Officer for MST.
Kevin Alshouse, Contract Services Manager, MST.
David Cox, General Manager for MV Transportation.
Aaron Hernandez, Transportation Planner with ED. Transportation Agency for Monterey County, or TAMC.
And would any of those joining us virtually like to introduce themselves?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Miranda Taylor. I work with AMBAG and I'll be presenting today.
I think that's it.
All right, well, thank you everyone for joining us. At this time, I'd like to open it up for public comment for matters not on the agenda. Hearing none, let's continue. So consent agenda, we approve the minutes of the regular meeting from March 29th, 2023. May I get a motion to approve said minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Oh, I need to do a roll call.
Let's get there. And maybe have a roll call votes.
Member Macias,
Approved.
Member Ramirez. Aye. Member Merritt,
Aye.
Member Gross. Aye. Member McKillop,
Aye.
Member Hernandez.
Aye.
Member Fernandez. Oh, I'm sorry, that's it. Approved.
Thank you. Item 4, presentation and recognition. I would like to, at this time, recognize Member McKillop and also Member Gross for 5 years of service here on the Mobility Advisory Committee. We do have a plaque presentation we'd like to do with you, as well as a brief photo.
So if we could ask both of you to come up.
Okay.
I need to sign a chair.
I'm not standing next to that.
Well, then, where's that?
Okay.
Which way?
Usually we're, if actually just have you stand right there, I'll,
Okay.
get a quick photo here. All right. Great, thank you.
Congratulations, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And then thanks for your virtual. Yeah.
Oh, look.
That's nice.
Thank you. And at this time, I'd also like to recognize Member Magana for 6 years of service on the Mobility Advisory Committee. Maria, if you were here in person, we do have a plaque for you at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kaimi.
All right, next we'll have the AMBAG 2023 Public Participation Plan. Miranda Taylor.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Miranda Taylor, and I'm a planner with the Association of Monterey Bay Area Governments. And I'm happy to be here today to discuss the development of the 2023 Regional Public Participation Plan. I'm going to give you a quick overview of the plan and its significance and what makes up the plan, and then go over the process for developing the plan, including the timeline. So the Public Participation Plan is a regional resource that contains the procedures, strategies, and techniques used by AMBAG for public involvement in all programs and projects that use federal funding. So the Public Participation Plan provides guidance for how regional transportation planning processes should be conducted to ensure that interagency consultation and public participation are an integral part of the decision-making process. The plan also communicates the value that community input and public involvement in the process provide to the region and how it better shapes regional policies and decisions regarding specifically the transportation system. So the procedures and policies described in the plan are there to comply with federal and state legislation, and in particular, the 2015 FAST Act, which increased the required involvement and collaboration with the public and local decision makers. So AMBAG, as the federally designated MPO or Metropolitan Planning Organization for the region, is required to prepare and adopt this plan every 4 years, and AMBAG collaborates with staff from the regional transportation agencies to update this plan to ensure that input and strategies are included for each of the 3 counties that we serve. So the plan last updated was in 2019. And so the 2023 update will cover the years from 2023 to 2026. And it will emphasize innovative strategies to achieve public outreach goals for the region. So local jurisdictions and planning agencies in the Tri-County Monterey Bay region that receive federal funds or are subject to federally required action are required to adhere to the guidelines set forth in the plan. A few key components that make up the plan I'll briefly go over. One of those is public participation requirements, and this outlines the various techniques and strategies for effective public outreach. Another key component outlines procedures and processes for developing the PPP or the public participation plan. This includes like the timeline that is attached in today's agenda. It also considers the different requirements for public participation as it relates to interested parties and engagement. And this ultimately describes that the plan must comply with the outreach strategies defined in Senate Bill 375, and that limited English populations should be continually engaged through conscious efforts on our parts throughout the planning processes. A few additional aspects of the plan I wanted to inform you all about or remind you of are the documents included in the appendices of the plan that are important to local jurisdictions and regional agencies on how we approach public participation. One example is the plan's appendices include a list of regional stakeholders that we will update during this development process. It also will be updating the partner agency contacts and a best practices guide for public participation strategies. And then it will also house a list of public participation practices by agency. The appendices also house the federal and state regulations regarding public involvement and the PIP or the Public Involvement Plan for the 2050 MTPSES, which we are starting to get the ball rolling on developing this year. It was just a couple months ago that felt like that we passed the 2045 plan, but now we'll be updating the public involvement plan for the 2050 MTPSES as well. So that's pretty much the brief informational part of it. For next steps, we currently have a survey out until April 27th. It's posted on our website, and there is a link, there's not a link to it in the agenda report, but I will put a link in the chat for you all. If you haven't taken the survey, we would be very interested in hearing from you. It's kind of our way of asking, how can we better engage in public participation? What times, what places, what types of engagement work best for individuals? And then a few questions just demographic based on what people, what age like to participate in what ways. So after my meeting here today, I will continue to present an overview to regional committees. And that will happen pretty much up until the end of April. And then beginning April 1st, I will begin to start updating the plan, and that will occur throughout May. The update will include myself and staff from TAMC, RTC, and San Benito COG, and we'll begin developing the draft plan. We're expected to go out for public comment in June. So June, July timeframe, I should be back to the MAC to present an overview of the draft plan and then receive comments or feedback from you all. We'll also hold a public hearing later this year in August, and then the final plan will be brought to the AMBAG board sometime in October. And then because what would it be? It's because TAMC will be using this plan, there will be public outreach efforts on their part as well. So staff from TAMC is going to be included in this process, and either one of us, I believe it's Shannon from TAMC that I'm working with, she'll be bringing the public hearing and the adoption to the TAMC board in the September timeframe. But that's all I have for you folks today. If you have any questions or guidance for me on how or what you'd like to see added to the plan, I can take questions or comments now. And then otherwise, hopefully I'll see you all again later this year and hopefully see some responses from you all on the survey that we have live right now. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Taylor? Hearing none. Thank you, Ms. Taylor.
Thank you.
Measure X Senior and Disabled Transportation Program, Cycle 3 grants, Aaron Hernandez.
Yes, so the PowerPoint that I sent, is that, no?
Yes, our IT will pull it up.
I guess I'll probably,
Would you like to use our podium?
sure. Okay. Well, good afternoon, everybody. This is my first meeting in person, so I'm glad to see everybody after. I think I joined in the committee back in 2021 while we were all still shuttered away in our rooms. So yeah, glad to see everybody in person. Today, I'm going to be giving an update on the Senior and Disabled Transportation Program, which is, if you don't know yet or have heard before, it is a Measure X funded program through our local sales tax measure that was passed in 2016. That TAMC led the effort in getting this measure passed. And part of what Measure X funds is part of the overall funding pot. Every year, or every 3 years, 1.5 million goes towards the Senior Disabled Transportation Program. And what the Senior Disabled Transportation Program is that it's focused on providing funding support for local nonprofits who work on people that are either seniors or people with disabilities to find solutions for more for other alternative modes of transportation and more independent modes of transportation. So right now we are currently in cycle 2 of the program, which is actually coming to a close this June, at the end of our fiscal year, June 30th. And many of our applicants right now are rounding up with their final use of funds. And while this is happening, we've been working on the cycle 3 process and getting ready for that. So in cycle 3, I think you could go into the next slide. Yes, so in cycle 3, we have, again, the 1.5 million available for cycle 3. This would cover the next 3 fiscal years from 2023 to 2026. And so far from what we're seeing, we still have 2 more quarters remaining in the current cycle 2, but from what we're estimating, there could be $40,000 to $100,000 left of funding that will be carried forward to cycle 2. We've launched the cycle 3 update, or the initiation of cycle 3 started back in summer of last year. And through this process, we've opened up a call for projects and received 5 complete applications in our December 1st deadline. And from December 1st until recently, we've had a grant review subcommittee who worked on the scoring of each application and conducted various activities. So in the next slide, we had in our grant review committee, we had 5 participants, including myself, Paula Getzelman from the Measure X Oversight Committee, Diana Jimenez, one of our fellow Mobility Advisory Committee members, Kevin Dayton, he is also from the Measure X Committee, but he only participated in the site visits, and then an additional TAMC staff member, Teresa Wright. And through the grant review process, what we did basically is first conduct the review committee met together to first to score each individually of the applications received and their score criteria, and then we met together to address any questions that we had from each applicant, and from that from those questions that we compiled, we did field visits. So we visited each applicant either in person or via Zoom. Some of them had to be via Zoom because during the time that we conducted the site visits, the January storms were occurring. So it was pretty hectic to be traveling around during that time. So, but we did have at least 2 people from attend each site. And I know a couple of the applicants are on this committee, obviously. So I just would like to thank you all for being flexible and, getting the chance to kind of show to the committee like what your programs are really all about, and giving them like that kind of like other perspective of things that they might not have seen had they just done the reviewing of the scores without the site visit. So appreciate all the effort on that. So with that, although with what we've gathered from the committee and the field follow-up questions that were answered, this was a very challenging cycle. And I take this word from also previous cycles from the committee members from previous experiences in the previous cycles. This was a really challenging cycle for the committee to score on. And there's a multitude of factors, and I don't necessarily have to cover each factor, but one of the biggest things is that we were brought to the issue that this is so far has been the highest ask of funding. So the program offers 1.5 million for the 3 years, and we were asked in total from all applicants $700,000 more than what we offer. So that really puts into a critical moment for the committee to decide, okay, so from what we've decided from our scores, like how exactly are we going to distribute funding? And the committee wanted to be very critical in like making sure that what their scores and what everybody's feedback on from the review process was very reflective into what the funding distribution may be. So I think in the next slide I have maybe, okay, so in the scoring process, at least, all the applicants were required to answer a set of prompts for each ranking criteria. So one of the, so just briefly going through, applicants were scored mostly on what the program purposes and their goals that they're trying to achieve for this project, how the project that they're working on, how it would benefit their clients and the senior disabled population, the feasibility, the ability to achieve this project that they're proposing. Geographic equity was a big component that's been asked from committee members from various committees in the past. Geographic equity in the sense that, is this project covering different parts of the county in an equitable manner? Like, are we not forgetting certain parts of the county, or are we too focused in the other areas? And then finally, cost effectiveness. Is the project cost effective to where we're not spending so much money on, say, one client or like on giving one trip in that sort of sense? So those are the ranking criteria that the committee followed as they were scoring these applications. If you go to the next slide. So here's a pretty big table. I'll go through it. Maybe since it's such a large table, it could be a little hard to see. But so this table here is just an overview of what the committee has looked at in terms of funding. Again, the challenge was, well, it is over $700,000. One thing that the committee found is that not one applicant had like a perfect score that like was standing out of everybody else. From what the committee found is that a lot of the applicants can be unique in the ways how they deliver their project and what they're intending to do. So it was difficult for the committee to kind of identify how kind of or to put in clear words. It was difficult for the committee to find any like outliers in this application review process. For the most, I think the committee did agree that Kearns Memorial Pool was probably the applicant who would receive the lowest score. But with that, the committee, as part of this review process, the committee does suggest a recommended funding for the Measure X Oversight Committee to look at, and then for finally the TAMC Board of Directors to approve. So, so here, what they were recommending is we looked at 3 options for funding. The first option was a 33% reduction from all applicants of their original request. One of the things that the grant review committee had feared is that if applicants weren't they did not want to leave all applicants applicants out of a funding opportunity. So they suggested that well, one way how we could do this is maybe reduce the request that's asked and then coordinate with applicants to see if it's possible if their project could still be deliverable. Of course, if there's a reduced amount, then obviously the proposed project would be scaled down to an amount. However, with TAMC staff reviewing this recommendation after, one issue with this recommendation is that, well, for one, it's not the full request that applicants had asked, but also another issue is that the program guidelines of the Senior Disabled Transportation Program does state that the funding recommendation should derive from the score ranking. So what's been done in the past 2 cycles is that the funding recommendation would go based on whoever scored the most. So if you scored higher, then you're guaranteed the funding, and then it kind of trickles down into whoever's scored third. So in this case here in option 2, Partnership for Children and ITN would get their full funding amount, but Alliance on Aging would only receive whatever is left over. And then the third option is a 20% reduction by rank. So, and I'm kind of describing all these just to show that the grant review committee tried looking at every aspect that they could that seemed reasonable for funding recommendation. And option 3, if that were the case, then the top ranked recipient would receive their full amount, and then it would kind of scale by 20% for every applicant. But the issue with that one is that as for the folks who receive the lower score, the question would be that they would only get so little funding that is it even possible to execute that project either way. So so obviously the committee, since fellow applicants of this program are in this committee, there's no there's nothing being asked other than providing comments. But what would happen next steps here is that we would present this information to the Measure X Oversight Committee and get their feedback on these possible funding recommendations. And then finally, we would get to the TAMC board for approval. But at least showing this for now preliminary to this committee, I'm hoping it kind of gives you all a sense of what's maybe to come. And at least for the applicants themselves, I would definitely, well, for the applicants themselves, it just gives us a preview of possibly working with the applicants to readjust the project budgets and the objectives of the project's applicant. So yes, very critical spot that we're in right now, but I would definitely appreciate any comments or any feedback that the committee has.
Thank you, Aaron. Just looking ahead, a few more slides ahead, and I only noticed this because of the Blind and Visually Impaired Center.
Yes.
Our grant award is actually the Kearns Memorial Pool Grant Award. And the Kearns Pool has our grant award on that. Just an FYI.
Okay, so it just an error there, is it? Okay, thanks.
Just a question of clarification, if I can, Chair, to Aaron. The option 3 is a scale of 20% going down because 57 is not 20% of their request at 286. Is that?
Yeah, so it should be based upon, oh, yes, I see what you mean for Kearns Pool. So the
20% reduction of the 33%.
20% reduction of their total grant request, but with Kearns Pool, is that since they are receiving the lower end of the stick since they scored last?
Rank, okay.
Yeah, then they would, I think that 57 there did reflect any funds that weren't available.
So it's a rolling 20, so it's full funding at the top ranked 20% at the second, which would be ITN, and then 40, 60, it's a rolling
Yes.
reduction. Got
Yeah.
it. Okay. And did the committee discuss the ability to use cycle 2 reserves in additional funding, or is that one of those elements? I know there was also that in cycle 1. But if I recall correctly, it was there is a variable of what that is, and so they couldn't really determine allocating funds. So is there a clarity around what was cycle 1's reserves or unspent dollars that could be applied to cycle 3?
Yeah, for cycle 1, I think I do from what I've saw is that cycle 1's, some of the leftover funding from cycle 1 was moved into cycle 2.
Well, there was. Okay.
And I know there was certain exceptions of like certain applicants not using their full funds. So I think I think it was the Measure X committee or the TAMC board, they approved funding for those specific applicants. And for cycle 2 funds moving into cycle 3, that would ultimately depend with what the Measure X committee and the TAMC board may want to see. Well, the Measure X committee may recommend how those leftover cycle 2 funds are moved into cycle 3. But typically what would probably happen, or maybe what could happen, is that those cycle 2 funds could possibly just fall into the next applicant in line that didn't receive their full funding amount. So.
I have a question, Chair, for Aaron. So option 1 is highlighted, and I noticed in the next slides that those were listed as grant awards. Is that
Yes,
the recommendation moving forward, or?
that's the recommendation that the grant review committee had. And yeah, I didn't go through the previous slides because it would be kind of redundant to do so. But that's what the grant review committee recommended. Now, the thing is that the grant review committee does not have the final say, because it is also dependent on what the Measure X committee will say. And there's also the fact that the option 2 is the option that is based by the program guidelines. So then the Measure X committee will have to see whether it makes sense to go with the grant review committee's request or following the program guidelines.
And when is the final vote? I know it has to go again to the TAMC board, but when is the Measure X committee vote?
Yes, so the Measure X, so after this meeting, the Measure X committee will be seeing this in April. I lost the date in my head, off the top of my head, but it's the Tuesday, I think was it April 11th, 16th. What's the Tuesday of, I think this the second or third week, and they would see that. And then the final the awarding of the funds won't, the approval of the funds and the applicants won't be until the May TAMC board.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Not a question, but I'll just make a statement that as somebody who has worked on other organizational grant reviews and clearly is a grant recipient from the past, kudos to the committee and the staff. It is not an easy task, and I know a lot of hard work and energy went into it. So I just want to recognize that and say that you guys have got clearly a big need on your hand, as it's clear by the applicant. So good work.
I echo that. Thank you guys so much for all your work.
Yes, and just to add, just thanks for all applicants for putting the time and effort. It's definitely an application that asks for a lot. So yes, the need for it increases ever so. So thanks.
Yep, thank you, Aaron. And then if you'd like to just stay up there, we can move into item 5, the unmet transit needs public hearing.
Yes. So I had a script for this one since it's a very routine item, but so again, this afternoon, I'm going to provide you an overview of the unmet transit needs process and then request that we open the public hearing. The unmet transit needs process is required by the State Transportation Development Act under the Local Transportation Fund, which allocates a 1/4 cent of the general sales tax that is collected statewide and comes back to the county on a population basis to support public transit services. Here in Monterey County, we have MST, which provides public transit services to all the cities in our county. Most of this money goes back to MST for transit services, and a small portion goes to the transportation agency for transportation as well as bicycle and pedestrian projects. As a requirement for using these funds, we have 2 public hearings per year to identify any transit needs that are not currently being met. The first public hearing was held at the Transportation Agencies Board meeting last month on February 22nd, and the second one will be held today. The public comment period for the unmet transit needs process is open until April 30th, and comments can be submitted during today's hearing or can be submitted in writing via email, by phone, or through our agency's website. Once the public comment period closes, staff will gather a list of comments received and determine whether MST can meet these needs through schedule adjustments, or if they are a longer-term need that requires additional grant funding. A running list of past years' unmet transit needs and their status for each is posted on the Transportation Agency's website. And so for this short item, that concludes my brief overview, and I'm happy to answer any questions from committee members before the chair opens the public hearing to accept comments for the public. Questions?
Seeing no questions, let's open for public comments.
I'm not seeing any, so
Maybe in 30 seconds.
yeah. But as I guess just a final remark, while there is no comments today, If any of you know anybody who would like to present any unmet transit needs that they aren't familiar, we did receive some comments in the February board. There are more as a request from Tamsi, feel free to spread the word and send them a link to the unmet transit needs.
I'm late. I was trying to figure out how I was going to ask this question.
Yes.
Please forgive me if I say it wrong. So Maribel and I and Teresa went on a trip this past Friday to Lockwood. Beautiful, long. And because their committee or their group of seniors that have their community committees and stuff, one of the biggest need they have is transportation. Because as they're getting older, you know, there's less driving for them and all that. So, and then we had actually texted Kevin and said, Kevin, is there a bus that goes over here? And he said, yes. They said no. So it was, you know, we're gonna get more information to see. Big need, but I understand why MST would not go that way if it was just to pick up, let's say, just one senior or two seniors, because it's a long way and it's far. But I want to put that on the table because there is a big need for transportation as seniors are getting older and they don't have that capacity of maybe family members or someone else to bring them to doctor's office or something. So they're they actually go to Paso Robles more than they go to King City regarding the needs they have. So I just want to put that on the table to see how we're going to be going there once a month, finding out all the needs that they need besides transportation and other stuff. But that's, I just want to.
Oh, yes, thanks.
And at this time, we will close the public hearing. Thank you, Aaron.
Sure.
Item 6, reports and information items. We'll get a report on the MV Transit MST ride service update. David?
Would like me to go there?
Service. Okay.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Okay, I'm going to give you a little bit of time to take a look at these slides because there's a lot of information to kind of take it in. The first one you're seeing here, it covers the past 3 fiscal years, or 2.5 basically, from fiscal year 2021 to current 2023. First graph there is the amount of rides trips. As you can see, there has been a great increase in requests for rides trips since 2021. It looks like we are pretty much in a full recovery from the pandemic. We're even exceeding some of those pre-pandemic numbers right now, so which is a good thing. Also with rides passengers, the graph below, the ridership is up over the past 3 years, and it's continuing to increase. In February it was just a tad lower than the previous year, but I feel those had to do with the weather that we suffered and the storms and the flooding that was in the area, that a lot of our passengers were not wanting to get on a bus and weather the storm, so to speak. And feel free to ask questions as we go along if anything comes up. If you can go to the next slide, please.
David, just really quickly, the
Yes.
passengers, that's unique riders by month, or is that total enrollment of the program?
Those are unique passengers.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect, thank
and
you.
we'll kind of cover that at the end. I've got a slide that will kind of break down the amount of passengers and where they fit in on the over the past month. Okay, so the next one here, we have the rides passenger per vehicle. Our contract with MST is to have an average of 1.87 passengers per trip. If you look at this current fiscal year and back in July of last year of 2023 or fiscal year 2023, we had switched over to a new dispatching system. We went from what we called trapeze before to EcoLane. One of the perimeters that they had set for us was to achieve that contract goal, okay, the 1.87. So that's why you'll see in those first 4 months, basically up until October, we were beating that goal. Okay, they set the perimeters really high for us, and we were meeting that standard, which was great in that aspect of it. But our on-time performance, if you look at the graph below, was suffering. Okay, they were focused, EcoLane had came in with their team and set us up to achieve that goal. And so, which was great, and we're hitting that aspect of it, but we weren't, meeting the needs of our clients and getting them to their appointments on time or being picked up on time. And that's our main goal is, we don't want to keep them on the bus for long periods of time, So we had to scale back a little bit once we realized what was happening. Okay, so in December, you'll see that number of the passengers per hour had dropped considerably. And, we're at a point right now where we're trying to balance that out with the passengers per hour with our on-time performance. So they kind of go hand in hand, and it's a balancing act that we have to do right now to try to achieve both goals. We don't want to keep our passengers on the bus for a long time, like I mentioned before. So we are, struggling to make that happen. Part of the reason for this is we have a staffing issue right now at MV. Ever since the pandemic, we've had difficulty getting drivers back. We had a lot of drivers that left during the pandemic. They didn't want to return for one reason or another, and so we're just having a difficult time getting them back in. We are heavily recruiting right now. We have currently 30. We have 60 total drivers at our division, with 30 of them primarily just set up for rides, buses and trips. And we need to have at least 68 right now. So I'm in the process of doing a lot of hiring. So since the beginning of January, I've hired 9 drivers, with 3 of these drivers expected to come out I'm hoping by April 14th. If all goes well, they pass their testing at the DMV and all that, they should be solo by the 14th. So we are on the right trend with making that happen. It's just a slow process. You get, the hiring, the background checks and the training and all that. We want to make sure that our drivers are well trained and well versed and ready to service the public, and so we take a lot of time and pride in making sure that they are trained properly. So it's typically, 45 to 60 day period from the time they get hired on and start their first day to the time they're out on road. So there is that time frame. So it's a process that's going. But it's just kind of, you're chugging along, little baby steps, but we are heavily recruiting. We have sign-on bonuses right now that we are offering to our new hires as well. That has been a great incentive, and it's working. And, so every week I've got interviews, 3 to 4 interviews a week. So we are on the right track there. So that these numbers I'm expecting to start improving over the next few months. So, okay, if we can go to the next slide. Okay, this is our basically our dispatch call hold times. We do have a lot of work in this area. Same type of scenario with this as well with our staffing. We've had quite a few of our dispatchers have been promoted. or have left the company or have decided they wanted to be a driver. So, I'm going to encourage that, but at the same time, you got to backfill. And, anybody who's had to do hiring, try to backfill it's tough. It's trying to do that recruiting and get them on board as well is difficult. But same thing with the drivers. I'm focusing on the hiring here as well. Currently, we have 6 dispatchers in total. We should have 7 dispatchers with a dispatch supervisor, so basically 8. So I'm down 2 right now. So our call hold time, is going to be a little bit longer than normal, but it is something that we do work on a daily basis to get that time improved, because I know, listening to making test phone calls and hearing the recordings and then being put on hold, what is 2 minutes seems, like 10 minutes to the customer, you're hearing the same music over and over and over. So we know this is something that we need to work on, and it is something that we focus on also on a daily basis. Okay, next slide, please. This next one here is our passengers carried per, with valid complaints. Unfortunately, we do get complaints. We don't like to get them, but we do get them. We try to handle those as quickly as possible. A lot of the complaints that we get are just for, late arrivals. They're upset because they got picked up for their doctor appointment late, or they got home late, or or at the grocery store and didn't get taken home on time. So and the long call hold time. So those are the majority of our complaints that we field on a typical week. Like I said, we don't like to handle those calls. I mean, we get them, you got to handle them, but we try to take care of those calls and then handle them so that it doesn't happen again. Find ways that we don't have repeat offenders and situations. So but like with anything, you're going to have a few complaints there. But as you can see, January was a good month. February, there was an uptick, a lot better than December, though, I'll tell you that. But so far, I feel we are on the right track in trying to minimize the amount of complaints that come through. And if you can go to the last slide here, this addresses the question earlier about the types of trips that we're providing. This graph here goes from February 1st to March 20th of this year. We had 11,919 total trips that we provided. And as you can see, a majority of them were with personal and recreational, which falls, with, just going out to dinner, the movies or shopping and things like that, or to our La Casa daycare center and things like that we service. The second one was dialysis. We have a lot of dialysis patients that we transport every day, some on a daily basis, some 3 days a week. But that is one of our primary customers that we trying to handle with extreme care to make sure that they arrive on time. And then the third one is, for educational training and daycare, which is, school and things like that we have a lot of those passengers as well. So yeah, it just kind of breaks it down. Then you have, our medical trips, and then, employment and things like that. But this is a nice sheet here. Kind of like you said, it breaks it down, kind of gives you an idea of what types of trips our clients are taking and the needs that are out there right now. So, and that is the last slide. Open for questions if anybody has any.
Hearing none. Thank you, David.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, MST mobility updates, Christy.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I just have a few items to update. So the mobility department is working on navigator volunteer recruitment. this coming months. So if you know of anyone who's interested in volunteering, please direct them to any of our mobility staff, specifically our new mobility specialist. Her name is Kelly Soriano. Or visit our website at mst.org. Also, Orange Cab 2. So right now we have 5 taxi cab companies who are currently providers of our taxi voucher trips. We already have Orange Cab 1, Orange Cab 2 expressed interest in becoming one of the cab companies to provide the voucher trips. So we are currently working on completing the contract right now. Hopefully we'll get them on board by next month. Last is that in observance of Older Americans Month in May, MST is hosting its 4th annual Senior Transit Day, and this is going to be in person. We will be opening the Mobility Services Center in Salinas to seniors on Tuesday, May 23rd from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And we've invited 6 seniors resource providers to participate in the event. And we will also be distributing fresh produce courtesy of the food bank. And then on that day, the senior shuttle bus lines 91, 94, 95, and 96 will be free of charge. Right now, the flyers is not officially complete yet, so we will have that available soon, hopefully by the beginning of next month. And that's about my update, but if you guys have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them for you.
All right, thank you, Christy.
Thank you.
All right, item 7, subject item request. Anybody have anything for any follow-up meetings or agenda items? Seeing none. Item 8, announcements and appreciations. Appreciations we've already went through. Again, thank you for your 5 years of service, and Maria, thank you for your 6.
Something here, Chair, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
The Marzette up here, Marzette Henderson's our transportation manager. Over the month of January through February and in a lot of March, we've all experienced a bunch of, situations that we haven't been accustomed to. Flooding specifically, being asked to do things that we normally don't do. So getting up real early in the morning, I'm talking 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. All respect and thanks to Marzette for representing MST at the mobility, and the Salinas Emergency Operations Center. In that role, he helped to fulfill the needs and the requests that were asked of MST. And so we did a lot of movement of people in short time. We propped up different bus stops that we were able to take people to and from so that we can provide human services or give them access to human services. Currently today, we are providing service throughout Pajaro. And that service couldn't have been made possible without Marzette, his people, and then other people. So this time I'd like to recognize Kevin Allshouse for the job that he did participating in that.
So if I could just jump in. Yeah, we have a few certificates of appreciation for a couple of the well, here for Kevin, and we have one for you, Dave, and one of your staff members. So we'd like to, if you wouldn't mind coming up, we'll start with Kevin. We want to express our appreciation and recognize you for your support, just for helping us out in January for the storms and helping us coordinate with MV. Thank you for your support and this appreciation to express our gratitude and recognize you. Thank you.
And then we've got
for David Cox with MV. David Cox, MB's general manager, contributed significantly, you and your team. I have one for you and I have one for notably Maria Garcia, your road supervisor, for the recent evacuations in Pajaro when the community was flooded on the night. Oh, well, first I'll start with yours. So thank you for your team's your organization's support for helping us out with the evacuations. Maria's not with us today, but I do want to, Maria gets notably a gold plated certificate. Don't sign up on that one. But Maria, on the night of the evacuation, she made herself available to MST very early in the morning to support and actively evacuate citizens and residents of the Pajaro neighborhood. So we wanted to give that to you to share with her, and thank you both.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. We also have one for Hope Ramirez, the general manager of Yellow Cab, who you subcontract with, but she's not here, and we'll figure out a way to get
We'll
that.
figure out a way to get it there. But Hope, she did the same thing. She jumped right in, made herself and her staff available after hours, any time of the day. She actually had somebody from Santa Cruz who works at Yellow Cab who made themselves available after hours. So they transported people to and from the areas that they were housed at, temporarily, and then over to employment and also to the school. So yeah, great job, everybody. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Great work.
All right, everyone. The next meeting is scheduled for May 31st at 1:00 p.m. in person. And with that, we'll adjourn the meeting 2:00.
Thank you. So
Thank
before
you,
everyone
everyone.
leaves, I have a little baggie so you can know about all the programs that we have aligned by aging, so you can connect.